guys, today in the shop we're going to be tearing out the compound turbo setup and installing this KC Turbo S2R. Alright guys, so some of you may think I'm crazy because I'm ripping out a compound turbo setup out of this truck, but I've been really excited, really want to try out this Stage 2. It's kind of paired perfectly. I got 190/30 injectors, and that's at the upper limit of this turbo, but being a manual transmission truck, you kind of want to have your turbo sized where it's at the upper limit of the turbo for the fuel you have, because that's where you're going to get your quickest spool. On an automatic truck, you can get away with a little bit bigger of a turbo because you have the advantage of the torque converter. We don't have that luxury here, so we went with the S2R. This is a pretty sweet turbo. Billet wheel, ball bearing, quick spool, 10 blade, so it's going to make noise whistle like you would not believe. It's going to be awesome. But I was just bored. Kind of wanted to tear this truck apart, get into a new project, and see how it runs. So I'm going to tear this all apart. Simultaneously, I'm going to be making another video. We have a Blessed Performance regulated return fuel system we're going to be installing. That's going to be a totally separate video, but we're going to be kind of doing it at the same time. And I'm excited to tear into it. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to get right into ripping all the piping off, get this compound setup off, and then start putting in the KC. So I'll tell you right now, this right here is a big part of the reason why I want to get rid of this compound setup. It is not easy to work on. When you need to do anything, you got to take everything apart. So now imagine just to do injectors on this side, all this has to come out. It's hours and hours worth of work. When you have a single VGT or a single non-VGT in the valley, obviously pull the intercooler piping off, a couple little brackets, and you're good to go. This is just ridiculous. Is it worth the power gains? Maybe, I don't know. But I certainly don't want to be taking this thing on and off all the time, that's for sure. All right, now that the compound turbo setup is all ripped out of there, it's time to start going with the new turbo. So one thing I want to suggest to you is make sure that your oil drain tube is the updated drain tube. If you've never had your turbo out or it's never really been apart, there's a solid chance it's the old style. And I'll put a picture up that'll show the difference between the two, but basically the original style drain tube is kinked down in a lot of these bends. It's much narrower. And the issue is it doesn't allow oil to drain back in. That is one of the leading causes of turbo failure. The other cause is a bad feed line. We'll talk about that as we go to put the feed line in, but this is one part you definitely want to have updated. I'll put a link in the description. I'll try to find one that you can purchase an updated drain tube if you don't already have one. And make sure the O-rings are in good shape and it's seated all the way into the high pressure pump cover before you start to put the turbo in. If you get this in there and it's not really popped in, then you try to get the turbo in, these can actually pop out of the pump, and then when you start it up, all the oil that drains out of your turbo will just drain right out down back of the motor and all out underneath. So drain tube, very important. All right, once your turbo is bolted in there, a couple of things. This is the updated feed line I was talking about. So if your feed line is braided and is flexible, you should upgrade it. A lot of times what can happen is the inside of the braid can collapse and fail and restrict oil flow to the turbo. Another really high failure rate on turbos is because of bad feed lines. So I'll also link one of these below. Something you should definitely do, update this without a doubt. If you have the braided one, it's a no-go. So before I get to this and installing it, I want to talk about up pipes. So a lot of guys struggle to get up pipes lined up with the backside of the turbo. There's a bunch of great videos out there. I believe Casey Turbos actually might even have a video about lining up pipes up. But if you have to force them into place, you either have a bad, cheap up pipe that doesn't line up good, or you're not doing it in the right order. So what you should do is have the bolts loose where the up pipes connect to the manifolds. Worst case scenario, where the up pipes bolt together, so you have the pipe that comes up from the passenger side manifold up to the Y pipe. You should have those loose, and you should have it just a little bit loose. If you have an EGR cooler, it should be just a little loose there. And then you want to take the up pipe and bring it all the way back, seat it into the turbo. You'll see the up pipes have that little bump out, and then there's the recess in the turbo it mates to. It needs to be perfectly flat. If it's not, it won't seal. You'll have an exhaust leak. An exhaust leak is going to put soot under your hood, and also it's going to make for a lack of power, and you definitely don't want that. So get everything lined up onto the turbo nice and flat. Get the V-band clamp on there. It is a little tricky. You might need to wedge something. You might need a second person to help you if you have a real tough time struggling with it. But get it on, and then get the V-band clamp just finger tight. So get it on, tighten the V-band clamp in so you can still kind of rotate it, but where it's tightened down, where it's going to hold that up pipe seated into the turbo. Once you have it seated into the turbo, then you can go tighten the bolts that go to the manifold, tighten all the other bolts and the V-band that attaches it to the EGR cooler, and then snug the one up that goes from the up pipe to the turbo. If you don't do that, you might have a hard time. There's a lot of guys, you see pictures and videos all over the forums, all over the Facebook pages, where their up pipe just will not seat to the turbo, and a lot of that is everything is under tension. And if you suck it in, like some of these tricks will tell you, use a ratchet strap, use a pry bar. If you do that, I can tell you right now, your up pipes are not going to last. You're putting a bunch of tension on them. The flex joints on these up pipes are not supposed to be flex joints. They're just supposed to be for expansion. They're not supposed to be bent, not supposed to be twisted. They should be assembled in a relaxed state. If they're not, you're going to have issues. So I'm going to get these up pipes on. Then I got to put the new downpipe in because I had my downpipe modified for my compound kit. Once that's done, we can do the intercooled pipes to intake, and should be pretty close to being able to test drive this thing. So let's get to it. All right, guys, I'm super impressed with the way this thing runs now with this turbo. I was honestly expecting to lose a little bit of the power I had getting rid of the compounds, but I mean, maybe in some top end, but I don't know. I don't really think it's much different. All right, guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Super happy with this turbo. Honestly, way more impressed with it than I thought I was gonna be. Thought I was gonna be a little bit disappointed going from having, you know, the big compound setup and going back to a single VGT, but honestly, stick truck, 190/30 injectors, it's perfect. This truck is just so crisp right now, and I really like the simplicity, getting away from all the piping under the hood and just cluttering everything up. So I'm gonna keep plugging away with it, hopefully getting back to making more content more consistently. Maybe get this thing on the track this year. I don't want to promise anything, but that's the goal, and start having some real fun with it, and then try to get some of these other projects rolling again. So as always, guys, like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Click the bell notification if you want to know when I upload, and thanks for watching In the Shop. Take 3. In stock on kcturbos.com.
Damn it!
Come over and record. Right as I'm fucking struggling, Alan. It's the wrong size socket. What am I? Where am I trying to get? All right. This is just permanent now.